Smith. I'm on the Scarborough Library. So thank you for coming. Oh, my notes are upside down. Today we welcome back a Shepherd graduate from the class of 2007. She's an author illustrator who blends sci-fi fantasy with adventure and comedy. Her first illustrated sci-fi fantasy series, called Destined Existence, is inspired by tabletop role-playing games she played with her husband and close friends. Please give a warm welcome to Kristina Hoffman.
Thank you everyone for coming to my author talk today, and a big thank you to Shepherd University Library for giving us the opportunity to talk about my book today. So I'm going to go about the whole process of the book through chapters. So chapter 1, my introduction. My name is Kristina Hoffman. I am a Shepherd alumni, class 2007, earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting and Drawing since I graduated. I have been a successful artist, art teacher, and illustrator. But it didn't happen just because I had to. It happened because I had to put the work in and believe in myself. Yeah, it was that positive mindset that led me to follow my dream into making this book. So since I was a little kid, my dream was to write and design my own book. So when I was a teenager, I thought, let's get into the business. And I started my very first job at the Charlestown Library. I was obsessed with books, and I had to be around them 24/7. I was a regular Matilda. So I used to write in small notebooks in between classes in junior high and high school, basically writing short stories. So whenever a teacher gave the class an assignment, and they'd be like, it's just 1 page, guys. I know you can't write a whole bunch. I would turn in like 3 or 4 pages. So I didn't know if that annoyed the teacher or if they liked it. It's okay, I don't need to know. But I was always carrying books around school. Everyone knew it was me because I was carrying around some type of science fiction or Star Trek book. So before coming to Shepherd, I worked in the theater and I learned how to write scripts. My high school teacher thought it was a good idea that I should enter the state finals. I actually got second place my first year, which was pretty cool. You don't get a trophy or anything special for second place, just a pat on the back and it's a nice little thumbs up. And the one judge, he wrote something interesting on my script, and that was what I kept with me. He wrote, "This would make an excellent book. You write scripts very well, but they read like a book. Keep up the good work and keep this talent." So that was the first time I'd been told something like that, only kind of reversed. I'd never written a script and they said what they said. But my teachers and my friends used to tell me all the time that, you know, my stories were sort of like watching a movie. I thought that was pretty cool. And everyone seems to like that type of style, so I kept it. So you'll find that style in this book. So if someone asks you, you know, is this book written like a 1980s or 1990s movie on purpose? The answer is yes. It's totally over. So I have always loved drawing and writing and being creative. There's nothing on the planet that's like it. So let's get to it, shall we? Chapter 2, what inspired the book? My husband wanted to play fun tabletop role-playing games with me and our closest friends. My husband and I came up with a story for the games. And they were about these different characters who came together and they were surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. So we played that out, and what was it like? It was chaos is what it was like, but it was fun chaos. And my cat, Johnny, at the time, played with us. He was our mascot. He had his own little chair, his character sheet, and his dice. And he really liked having all, watching us have all the fun and wanted to be part of it. So after about 6 months of playing this game, I asked myself, how could I take elements of the story, not the game, but the story, and make it into a real book? So my husband was very encouraging, and he told me to go for it. The next thing I knew, I was role building and sketching what the characters looked like and creating their story. I didn't copy our game characters exactly, but I did give them personalities that was influenced by myself, my husband, and my friends. Chapter 3, how long it took to write the book and my adventure in publishing. It took 10 years. So I started writing in the spring of 2013. By the fall of that year, I was a substitute teacher, and by the fall of 2014, I was a full-time sub and then art teacher. But I was still writing. I used to take my notebooks with me to the school during lunch breaks to write. And by the fall of 2015, that was when I was a full-time art teacher in the public system. So I tried to write and be creative as much as possible while being full-time, but that was extremely hard to do. It was this year that I painted my book cover before knowing it was going to be the cover. So by 2016, I had paused my writing and only wrote when I could. I never gave up. I was still making myself notes, thousands of notes, which I kept. I continued to cook up ideas in my head for the story. I did that for nearly 2 years. I would illustrate here and there, I'd write here and there. Just knowing I was making progress, that was what mattered at that. So by 2018, I got back into it. The book is right now 420 pages long. Back then it was a lot longer. So I had close to 900 to about 1,000 pages back then. And my husband told me, that's way too big for a book. That's way too long. So I broke it up into 3 segments, book 1, 2, and 3. So when the spring of 2019 hit, I was feeling really good. I started my professional art business, and I was writing and drawing every single day. But then we had something that was unexpected happen. My cat, Johnny, who liked to play our games with us, he stopped eating, and the vet diagnosed him with cancer. And she told us we had 3 months. I had no idea those 3 months were going to be 3 days. So I raised him, got to watch him, and I got to be there when he passed. But the grief that I felt, made me pause on my book yet again. I didn't touch it for about 6 months, but I wanted to dedicate the book to him. So when you do open the book, it will say dedicated to Johnny Hoffman, because he was my baby. So when the COVID pandemic happened, I was mainly focusing on the art business at the time and writing here and there. But then I realized, I'm not teaching right now. This is a good time to really focus on the book. But by December of 2020, it was finished. So from 2021 to 2022, I was looking for an agent. I was told all kinds of things, especially your book is too short. And I thought, how can that be? There's plenty of sci-fi books out there that's about 250 pages. So I had book 2, or I thought it was going to be book 2, already finished. So I put it together with book 1, and I went from 250 to 420 pages. But suddenly agents were interested in the manuscript, but I still wasn't getting picked up. So what did I do during that aggravating time? Kept writing and drawing, kept working on my art business. Did I want to give up? No, I never said I'm just going to give up. Kept trying. In 2022, I had an agent contact me, and she was interested in manuscript. So I researched her company, something I'd never heard of before. It was a hybrid publisher. And I was interested because to me, this was one step forward direction. Their company sort of worked like a vanity press. You need to pay them to produce your book. So in order to do that, I needed to raise about 14 grand. So I started a Kickstarter. In the middle of the Kickstarter, however, their company changed hands. They even let my agent go, which I was really uncomfortable with. So I thought to myself, let's play it safe here. So I stopped the Kickstarter, never signed with them, and I let them know, hey, it's just not meant to be. So it was hard to do that, but it was the right thing to do. I was advised by other independent publishers at Comic Cons to self-publish. So I hired a few editors and started the process myself. I had 3 editors in this journey. The first one, she didn't think our writing style would fit. Fair enough, so I let her go. The next editor got to about the middle of the book and she goes, I don't like your main character. And I was like, I don't think you need to like the character, but all right, that's fine. So I let her go too. The last editor, she did her job, and she helped me to edit the entire book. But I knew you need more than one to make sure it's finished. So I thought, well, do I really want to find another editor and pay her? Not really. So instead, I went to Stephen King. Not literally. So he had a list of rules for editing that he goes by. So I studied them, and in 3 months, I learned how to edit. That was not an easy 3 months. So I had learned to edit my book. I learned to self-publish. I signed up with KDE, and I started another Kickstarter campaign to assist in the funding, marketing, and editing. By December of last year, my book was 100% finished. I ordered my first proof. It was beautiful. And Destined Existence, the unique campaign, was published on January 4th, 2022. Chapter 4. Let's talk about the book. The Destined Existence, the unique campaign, is an illustrated sci-fi fantasy book made for adults who are young at heart. It is 420 pages long and has 115 illustrations. Even though it's a science fiction fantasy with a style of writing like a script, it's full of adventure. It's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. There's comedy. It's going to make you laugh out loud unexpectedly. It is the first book in a planned series. The sequel is being worked on right now, which was originally book 3. So don't ask me when it'll be finished and published, because that takes time. But I can guarantee it won't take another 10 years. But let's focus on reading this first book, reviewing it, and then look forward to the release of the sequel. I'll start posting updates about my book on my main website blog and my other social media. Please follow me. Just started a Patreon too, if anyone's interested in that. So the scenario of Destined Existence, the unique campaign, feels very much like if the 1939 Wizard of Oz met the 1985 of the Beatles. So everyday life in the year 2215, on a post-apocalyptic world, humans and magical creatures are living in turmoil. An evil corporation's goal is to rule the northern region of the land, once known as the United States of America. All magical creatures, fairies, wizards, elves, goblins, they're all known as antiquities, and they all fear this corporation. The evil corporation wants to destroy all of them. These magical creatures were always on Earth, but they recently came out of hiding. The corporation rules with science, not sorcery. Magic to them is a threat, so no magical creatures are safe on the planet. The story opens on a lone transport plane that's going to streak across the sky over a vast wilderness. Inside the plane are a pair of unlikely mercenaries on their way to a small town to complete a mission. The larger of the two men is the main character, Troll, a warrior who reflects on a red amulet in the center of his chest plate. Troll is just his code name, and he's very private about his past. The other passenger is his coworker and best friend, John Doe, a young amateur wizard who has memory problems. The Troll wakes up from a nightmare, he discovers a stowaway, and he causes their plane to crash. Then we go to the next characters. The Andromedan Galaxy, Corin writes in his journal about not looking forward to his workday. But this morning, a magical purple whirlwind appears in outer space. Tornado destroys his spacecraft, and it transports him to Earth, where he meets Rowan, a faerie. Rowan loves her forest and her animals. They discover John Doe and Troll in battle, and that's how they meet. Afterwards, the last main character shows up, a large German cyborg named Jack Garland. He's on his way to the same town as Troll and John Doe. So, as Corin and Troll converse with Jack, they leave Rowan and John alone. She talks to him about how much he likes nature and wildlife, but he speaks about how he prefers fires and barbecues. So they have some disagreements. But Jack's on his way to the same town. Corin wants to find his way home. He joins with them with Rowan, who wants to protect her forest and her animals on their journey. So the group of unusual friends soon experience life-changing events, such as, but not limited to, John Doe and Troll seek new employment, Rowan gets a crush on one of her friends. They enjoy a meal at a cafe, attend a funeral, fight a dragon, meet a crew who owns an M4 Sherman tank. They must survive brutal combat in the woods, seek help from a powerful warlock who might be able to turn Corin home and train John Doe. And Troll must go on a secret mission as a fortune cookie predicts his destined existence. The title. And that is not the ending. No spoilers are allowed at this talk. I'm sorry. Chapter 5, my characters. We're going to start with John Doe, the forgetful amateur wizard. He's the humor and the comedy side of the story. He can be quite goofy and silly and often says the wrong thing at the wrong time. He doesn't need to be unkind, but he has an inability to speak, to think before speaking. He's the youngest of the group, and Troll's like his big brother, always watching him, helping him through situations, most of which John Doe causes his magic. Surprisingly, he's not single, but I'm not telling you who or what he's dating. So Jack is the grieving cyborg of the group. He's the next to oldest in the group, and he has a pretty rough history compared to his companions. Cyborgs aren't considered trustworthy either, so Jack has to deal with a lot of people who are judgmental. Through the story, his sadness turns to happiness as his relationship with his new friends demonstrates that unexpected friendships can turn into family. He also develops a crush on someone who he meets later, someone who's very skilled in mechanics. Corin, the boss space ranger, he's taken from his scientific home in outer space and his job, and he's dropped off onto Earth that's full of magic and wonderment, and he's separated from everyone and everything he's ever known. He faces temptation, fear, greed, betrayal, and love throughout the story. Corin grows throughout the story the most and learns a lot of life's lessons. I'm not telling you what it is now. Rowan is the hot-tempered faerie. She's the oldest and owns all of the forest. Although born into royalty, she is no Disney princess. And don't get on her bad side. Rowan possesses powers of nature, and she's very powerful and full of life. She usually flirts with any male, but suddenly she has some fondness for one particular man in her new group of friends. I'm not going to tell you, but you have to find out. Rowan loves animals, would do anything to rescue them, even steal a vintage car from a traveler who's on his way to work. That's one part you'll like that. And Troll is the pure-hearted warrior. He's brave, but he isn't afraid to admit when he is afraid. He wants to protect his friends, and he wants to help strangers. He wants to do what is right. And he's spiritual too. He has some soothing stones and and he likes to meditate, but he has a very painful past, something that does haunt him from his childhood throughout the entire book. So can he face his fears? He is also burdened by superhuman abilities granted by the red amulet, and he doesn't really know who bonded it to him, but he longs to let go of that painful past and start a life anew with his friends. Chapter 6, the birth of Troll. So he's a very interesting character. The entire inspiration for him actually came from a dream when I was 8 years old. So it was about this Native American warrior who was just rescuing people from this sinking community. So it might have been Atlantis, I'm not sure. But he was really powerful and making sure everyone got out of the city before thick. And I was only a little kid in the dream too, nearly drowning. He picked me up, got me to safety before a giant pillar nearly crushed both of us. And I got to watch him grab this pillar and he held it up, told me, go get the high ground. I didn't go too far because I'm kind of worried about the big guy. And he tossed the pillar aside and he kind of put it in place like a beaver dam so it would stop the water. And he came back to me and all the people in the city made sure everyone was okay. I woke up the next morning, wrote it all down in a notebook, and I've always kind of just remembered that. So I used to watch He-Man and Masters of the Universe when I was a kid. I watched the cartoon and the 80s movie. I also watched Conan the Barbarian, read comics whenever I get my hands on them. And they kind of just reminded me of that dream. So I have Native American ancestry from Pocahontas' tribe. So maybe the dream was about an ancestor. Who knows? All I know is I wanted to put this man in the story for a long time. So when my husband introduced me to tabletop role-playing games, I figured now was the time to write up this character. He'd been in my mind for years, put him on paper. So I played him in the game. Let's see what happens. So I needed a name, a code name, something that would be strong and make an attacker think twice before initiating combat. And that quote is actually on page 116. So I named him Troll, and at first wasn't sure why. So when I rolled the character up, I was thinking about that dream and what I loved in the 80s, and I loved the never-ending story. My favorite character was the Native American Atreyu. And then I thought about another movie with the same actor who played Atreyu. It was the 1986 B movie Troll. And it is in no way a popular movie, but it's a classic. And once you see it, you're not going to forget it, trust me. So I wrote the name Troll on the character sheet and immediately said, he's a warrior who kills trolls. What better name to give a warrior? And no, I'm not telling you his real name. That's in the sequel. You'll find that later. Chapter 7, an example comedy. So to give you an example, I'm going to read a little passage from page 96. So Rowan landed beside them. Well, there's never a dull moment with you four. I love it. I wish every riveting moment did not have to deal with me almost dying, John Doe said, crossing his muddy arms across his chest. At least we're all safe, Jack said, unscrewing his left index finger. He pointed it at John Doe, and a stream of pressurized water steamed out with great force, soaking the muddy wizard's coat. No, this coat is leather, John Doe cried, coughing as water splashed through his red scarf and into his mouth. It was ruined leather before you met me, John Doe, Jack said, laughing as the water stopped and he screwed back on his finger. Corin finished wiping the mud from his boots. Let's head out, he said, licking the dirty handkerchief. I'll hold on to that, Corin, said Jack, opening a small door on his thigh. He dropped the handkerchief in and closed the compartment. He tapped the tiny button next to his hip, and his friends gazed in confusion at the immediate sound of rushing water. What is that? Asked Corin. Washing machine, Jack said. Sure, why not? Corin chuckled, shrugging his shoulders. Are we all ready to go? I'm wet, complained John Doe, wriggling his damp arms. I'll blow you dry, Jack said. Just let me take off my right hand. No, 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 John Doe squealed, running and hiding behind the tree. That's one little example of some of the comedy that happens. Chapter 8, in the last chapter, hard work pays off. So I hope and want my book to be entertaining, but I also want to be encouraging. I hope it's a great impact on the people when they read it. My book has an important lesson in its pages, even though it's sci-fi fantasy with adventure comedy, but you might find a little piece yourself in there. Maybe a character or scenario that you can connect with. So follow your dreams and get inspired. Put the work in, never give up, restore hope, be brave, and overcome your fear no matter how afraid you are, and believe in yourself and what you can achieve. If you're a fine arts student, it is possible to be a professional illustrator and have your work in books. And if you're a creative writing student, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing and doing the work yourself. It's fulfilling. Step in the right direction. It's being free to do what you want. But I kind of quote 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 14 in the Bible. Let all that you do be done in love. Thank you so much for coming to my author talk. You have no idea how much I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you enjoy the book. It is available here in paperback and hardback. Help yourself to refreshments in the back. Please mingle. And when you're ready to step over to the purchase a book, I will sign them for you with no extra charge. I'll even personalize. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming.